we have a great injustice that has persisted for now 4 decades, where some of our hardest working fellow Americans, public servants in certain states where they have non-Social Security covered employment, or to say it this way, where they have teacher retirement systems separate from Social Security, or firefighter retirement systems separate from Social Security. So in these states, we have what is called a windfall elimination provision in the Social Security law, which has shortchanged 2 million roughly hardworking public servants. Now, some people are still getting a windfall, but the vast majority are not getting what they earned and what they put into the Social Security system.
Here's the facts. 70 million Americans rely on Social Security. And it's the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly, and the #1 anti-poverty program for children. More veterans rely on Social Security for disability than they do the VA. And Congress has done nothing to help these individuals out. Add to that, Mr. Speaker, the fact that 10,000 baby boomers a day become eligible for Social Security. What we need to do in today and in both of these bills that are come before us are steps forward, but we need to come together as a Congress and vote to fix Social Security in a manner that doesn't hurt or cut benefits for individuals that haven't seen a benefit enhancement in more than 50 years. And we come here today and say, here's a crumb. But even in the form of this crumb, this proposal will cut benefits for hardworking, everyday Americans. I respect my colleague, and I do believe that his heart is in the right place. But Congress, and both sides, have responsibility here. But perhaps now there is an opportunity for us to act. Perhaps the fact that even under suspension, not regular order with public hearings where viewers get to see and actually hear from expert witnesses and get to hear both the fiscal side of what needs to be paid for, but also the benefit side in terms of what has not been done. The American people have got to be outraged by the fact that it's been over 50 years since Congress has adjusted Social Security. By that I mean enhanced Social Security for its recipients. Imagine that. And you think a few things have happened since Richard Nixon was President of the United States. Do you think a few things have happened, especially as we live in this post-COVID and now inflationary period? It impacts over 70 million of our fellow Americans. This provision that my colleague and good friend is talking about, WEP, is minuscule in terms of comparing that to individuals. And as well intended as I believe he is, this doesn't straighten out the problem. In our bill, Social Security 2100, we repeal WEP and GPO, and we pay for it. And that is the responsible thing that Congress has to do on behalf of the American people. Imagine my dear friend knows this, 5 million of our fellow Americans, and they're in Texas and they're in Connecticut, get below poverty level checks from their government. So it's great that you have a proposal for WIP, but 5 million people currently on Social Security get below poverty level checks from the wealthiest nation in the world and from a country that's had a program in place, but Congress hasn't acted in over 50 years. 5 million. Most of them are women, and most of them are women of color. Then there's more than 33 million, who the only benefit that they have, the only thing that keeps them out of poverty is Social Security. And Congress hasn't acted since 1971? And these people will be hurt by this proposal. Benefit cuts in a time of inflation. Ask your constituents back home, Mr. Speaker, whether or not they can afford this cut. Now, here's the other irony. Here we have one of the great economic development plans ever instituted by the United States Congress. That's right, an economic development plan, Social Security. How so? Every district on average has about 143,000 on average Social Security recipients. Every district monthly receives on average $200 million in cash coming into their district. In fact, my dear friend and colleague here, $222 million comes into your district on a monthly basis. And you have more than 95,000 retirees, 9,000 children who get money from Social Security, 10,000 widows, 4,800 spouses, and 14,000 disabled. And Congress has done nothing. Nothing. And these cuts that will take place because Congress hasn't stepped up and said we need to fund this program, not cut it. Some may argue, well, you know, back in '83 they did do something. But yeah, what they did is they raised the age. Another great proposal on the other side. For every year you raise the age, that's a 7% cut in benefits. So let's raise the age to age 70, the Republican Study Committee says. And what does that do? Cuts benefits by 21%. Aren't you glad that you worked hard and invested and put your money aside so that you could find out that, yeah, well, what we're going to do is raise the age so you work longer, and as you're living longer, we expect that you'll get less in retirement, not more. It makes no sense whatsoever. We need to come together as a Congress and vote to enhance the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and for our children. I respect the good intentions that people have, but as they say, the road to hell oftentimes is paved with good intentions. And in this case, though, let's not talk about the parties. There's a lot of blame to go around here. How about we focus on the people, the American people, who we take an oath of office and swear to serve. And staring this Congress in the face is over 50 years of inaction and 70 million people who are impacted by this in what is the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly and for our children. I reserve my time.
The gentleman from Connecticut reserves. The gentleman from Texas is recognized.
My friend mentioned my seniors in West Texas. Let me tell you what they sent me here to do. To be an advocate for them, to ensure that we have fair and just laws, to fix what's broken about Social Security, but do it in a way that we don't accelerate what will be an automatic cut in less than 10 years. By repealing the windfall that existed before 1983, you're saying you're okay with taxpayers just spending more money than they should, more money than what has been earned and owed to the seniors, and in a way that creates a vast and tremendous discrepancy and inequity between 2 million people in several states as opposed to almost 60 million across the country. How unfair, how nearsighted and narrow-minded can we be not to consider the fact that we will have a bankrupt system and that we have future seniors that can't bank on their retirement because we want to go back to pre-windfall where it doesn't make sense, Mr. Speaker. And listen, the Democrats had control of this place from top to bottom in 2020 and 2022, and they didn't fix it.
But here's the problem. Everybody at home watching this, they need to understand the joke. We're playing with house money yet again. We're playing with funny money. We're pretending and lying to the American people that the Social Security funds that are extracted from their checks is sitting in a lockbox. It's sitting in an account for them. It is not. That is a lie. The money is taken out of your check now, and that money is then given to those people who are retiring now, those who have retired. That's the truth. It's a tax. And what happened here was we messed up because we're government. We mess up almost every single second. Government messed up, and now we're trying to fix the mess up. But in this case, my friend from Texas has introduced a bill that responsibly fixes the mess up. It actually tries to go in and say, if you're a firefighter, if you're a cop, if you're a teacher, and you've got the situation where you've got another job and that Social Security was taken out of your check, but you're not getting the benefit of that because you have a pension. This proportional model, which is $25 billion according to the Social Security Administration, would responsibly address it. Now, I wish it was paid for. We don't pay for anything in this town. But at $25 billion, at least addresses it responsibly. We should not have to do this. This should have gone through the Rules Committee. We should have amended the bill. We should have a debate about it. We should pay for it. But instead, we're doing the same crap we always do. But I support this bill. I yield back.
I think the gentleman from Texas, this will be budget neutral over the 75-year for the trust fund, according to the actuarials. And I thank him for his comments and reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman from Texas, Mr. Arrington, reserves. The gentleman from Connecticut is recognized.
Well, I have to say, I do agree with Mr. Roy's last statement that what we needed is to go through regular order, and what we needed is to pay for it. And that is the responsible thing to do, is to pay for it. We have a plan to not only repeal weapon GPO, but pay for it. And yes, I heard people refer to the Brady-Neal proposal, but Ranking Member Neal has a plan also to deal with WEP that is fair and makes sense and is something that we should be embracing and including and is paid for. And that is the big issue today. It's not that people's hearts aren't in the right place, and I think the gentleman from Texas understands this. And all of us as Americans, the President of the United States, Mr. Biden, has made a proposal. Incoming President Mr. Trump has made a proposal also. He's made a proposal to cut taxes for people in Social Security work. We have that proposal in our bill, except we pay for it because that's the responsible thing to do. And what has been irresponsible is Congress not debating this in regular order, bringing it to the floor, and then how about doing something incredible here? Actually have a vote on the nation's #1 anti-poverty program for the elderly. #1 anti-poverty program for our children until the child tax credit is fully adopted. And the program that more veterans rely on for disability than the VA. This program is so admired and respected by the American people that overwhelmingly independents, Republicans, and Democrats all believe that it should be supported, expanded, because it hasn't been in over 50 years, and paid for. We have a plan, anxious and waiting for the debate and for the discussion and the dialogue to take place here in regular order and have a vote on a plan that's comprehensive and paid for and lifts the 5 million Americans who get below poverty level checks from the government above the poverty level and provides people with the opportunity in every single one of our communities to get the benefits they richly deserve. I reserve.
I agree, Mr. Larson. We need a broader debate on Social Security. And we better hurry up because it will be insolvent in less than 10 years. So we need to talk about the solvency, the sustainability, the entirety of the program, pay-fors, programmatic reforms, the benefits, all of it should be on the table. That's why, as budget chair, I passed a bipartisan fiscal commission that would look at that, and also at Medicare, which is another important safety net for seniors. But we're talking about one specific, I love your passion, and I hope that we can get thoughtful members on both sides of the aisle, like yourself, to sit at the table and do the right and responsible and mature thing and actually work on a compromise solution like Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill did. I bet you'd agree with that. But we're not talking about the entirety of Social Security. We're talking about this subset of people affected by WEP, and it's about 2 million people. And what I don't want to do, I want to fix that for them. I want them to get the money they've earned.
Well, I think you gave a very impassionate plea, but I think we have to dispense with we're throwing money at the problem. This is money that people have paid weekly, biweekly, monthly out of their paychecks. We're not talking about just 2 million people with regard to WEP. We're talking about 70 million Americans. They understand this program. Frankly, it doesn't need to be studied. It needs to be voted on. Where's the plan on your side? We have a plan, and God only knows that plan should be subject to debate and discussion, but the plan is to enhance Social Security, not to cut it, so that people who are currently struggling, people now, today, not waiting for a study, but as we speak, are getting below poverty level checks. And you stand there and tell me we're throwing money at them? They didn't think it was throwing money when they were paying the money out of their paycheck, and they put their trust and confidence in the United States of America to return to them a benefit that has been the #1 anti-poverty program for the country. I don't care what party you're in or who you are, you understand what Social Security has meant to you. Social Security is the safety net for capitalism. It's what allows entrepreneurialism to succeed, for people to take risk. And if they fail, and unintentionally or otherwise, people are disadvantaged or out of work, they are protected. We learned that lesson after the Great Depression. And if you think it can't happen again, it can. In 2008 and 2009, people saw their 401k become a 101k. And during that time, that trust fund never missed a payment. Not a pension payment, not a disability payment, not a spousal or child payment. What it needs is Congress to act and Congress to vote. And Congress is going to go one of two ways. They're either going to enhance the benefit and say, hey, you know what? This hasn't been adjusted in over 53 years. And we recognize we have the responsibility to do that. But we haven't acted. We haven't voted. Both sides haven't acted. But now is the time for us to act and to vote and put a plan in front of people that they get the opportunity to choose. If you got a better plan, we've got one. We've got one that expands benefits and is paid for. We actually have the temerity to ask people that pay nothing to actually contribute to Social Security, just like they do to this great military that we have in this nation. People don't go out and buy their own tanks and don't go out and buy their own F-35s. And it's long overdue. The people in this country all contribute their fair share to the process. This is the safety net for capitalism and entrepreneurialism in order for us to survive. And every single district is benefited by it. It's an economic development plan. How do you explain to people? How can you look them in the eye and say, well, I'm sorry, we couldn't do anything for you, even though your districts all receive over $200 million, and yet we haven't done anything to enhance that? And we're suggesting that they take less while they're living longer? Where do they spend that money? They spend that money right back in your district, at the local pharmacy, at the grocery store, paying their rent and mortgages, at the dry cleaners. It all goes back to the American people and allows our economy to flourish. The brilliance of Franklin Delano Roosevelt is still with us today. The obstinance of Congress not voting to enhance people's benefits in more than 50 years? Ask anyone in your district, have things changed for them since 1971? And could they use a little help from their Congress? And wouldn't it make sense? How many do you think even understand there's a cap on Social Security? And we're proposing that we lift the cap on people making over $400,000, that they actually would have to pay the same thing that someone making $30,000, $50,000, $100,000 makes? They all pay. Isn't that the fair thing to do in the country, so that all of your constituents and mine and all 435 members of this body can make sure that we're taking care of the people that we're sworn to serve, especially those that are already retired, those that are there now. So while I respect the intention of the gentleman, 14 million people get cut under your proposal. 14 million. That's not acceptable. I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. Members are reminded to direct their comments to the speaker.